The evening sky over the alien city was painted in shades of violet and gold. The sun, larger than Earth's, sank behind towers that curved like spirals, each glowing faintly with threads of light. The warm season had reached its height, and with it came the most famous event on the planet, the Lantern Market. Aaron walked slowly down the wide road that led to the market gates. He was not used to such colors, such sounds, or such smells. His boots clicked against smooth stone tiles that seemed to hum when touched. All around him, alien travelers passed by. Some had tall, elegant frames covered in patterned scales. Others were short, with fur that shimmered in the fading sunlight. He felt many eyes on him, but not with anger, mostly curiosity. Humans were still rare visitors here. Aaron had heard stories about the Lantern Market back on his station. Merchants whispered of stalls that sold food glowing like fireflies, crafts that could sing when touched, and lanterns that floated high into the sky, carrying with them the hopes of those who lit them. He had traveled far, working odd jobs on ships just to see this place once in his life. As he entered the wide gates, the sight struck him silent. Thousands of lanterns, big and small, lit the air. Some floated gently just above the stalls. Others rose higher, tied to thin threads glowing in every shade of orange, red, and blue. The air carried the sweet scent of spices, mixed with the sharp tang of roasted fruits and the soft perfume of flowers unlike any he had seen on Earth. Music drifted from a corner, strange instruments shaped like shells, played by beings with long fingers. Aaron smiled to himself. He had stepped into another world entirely. He moved slowly between the stalls, his eyes wide as he tried to take in every detail. At one stall, a creature with wings like silk fans sold jars of light, each flickering as though a star had been trapped inside. At another, a vendor offered food wrapped in leaves that steamed with warmth, the scent making his stomach growl. He exchanged a few coins, bought one, and took a cautious bite. Sweetness filled his mouth, followed by a soft, cool flavor that reminded him of mint and honey at the same time. This is amazing, he whispered to himself. But the market was not only about goods. It was about people, or rather beings. Families laughed together. Children with glowing skin ran between the stalls, and voices in dozens of languages filled the air. Some sounded like song, some like deep drums, and some like whispers of the wind. As he explored, Aaron noticed something. Though most looked at him only once before going on, one figure seemed to glance at him more often. She stood behind a stall decorated with thin cloth that shimmered like water. Her skin glowed faintly, soft blue beneath the lantern light, and her eyes had a warmth that drew him in. Her hair was silver, falling smoothly down her shoulders, and tiny beads of light seemed to move within it like sparks caught in threads. She was not human, yet something about her made him pause. Her name, though he did not know it yet, was Mira. She belonged to a people known for their gentle voices and skill in trade. Many visitors came to her stall, touching the glowing cloth and whispering with wonder. But her eyes returned again and again to the lone human moving slowly among the crowd. Aaron did not notice at first. He was too busy studying the glowing fruits at another stall. Some were red and pulsing softly, others deep green, giving off little sparks when touched. He leaned closer, curious, and the vendor, a tall being with skin like bark, explained in a language broken but clear. Fruit of heat. Bite, and it warms your chest. Fruit of calm. Bite, and you sleep well. Try, human? Aaron laughed lightly, shaking his head. Maybe later. I don't know if my stomach could handle alien fruit yet. As he turned away, the crowd pressed closer, and for a moment he lost balance. The ground seemed to tilt as someone brushed hard against him. Before he could fall, a hand caught his arm, light but steady. He looked up and found himself staring into soft blue eyes that glowed faintly under the lanterns. Mira. For a moment, neither spoke. The noise of the market faded in Aaron's ears, replaced by the sound of his own quick heartbeat. Mira's touch was warm, though her skin glowed like cool light. She let go slowly, tilting her head as though studying him. You should be careful, she said in a calm voice, her words clear though accented. The market is crowded tonight. Aaron straightened, rubbing the back of his neck. Yeah, I noticed, thanks. I think you saved me from crashing into the fruit stall. Her lips curved into a faint smile. That would not be the best way to begin your visit. Aaron chuckled. No, it wouldn't. I'm Aaron, by the way. Mira, she replied simply. They stood for a moment, awkward yet curious. Around them, the market continued with its colors and sounds. But Aaron felt the space between them was strangely quiet, as if the lanterns above had shifted just for them. Mira gestured toward the glowing fruit stall. You were curious about them, weren't you? Many off-worlders are. They look dangerous, but most are harmless. Some are even good for humans. Aaron raised an eyebrow. Really? You seem to know a lot about this place. I grew up here, Mira explained. My family has a stall in the lantern market every year. I've seen many travelers, though not many humans. You're different. Different. The word could have sounded sharp, but the way she said it was soft, thoughtful. Aaron felt a small warmth spread in his chest. He smiled, though his voice stayed light. Different isn't always bad, I hope. Mira shook her head, her silver hair catching the lantern glow. Not bad. Just rare. They began to walk slowly together, Mira pointing out details Aaron would have missed. The history of certain stalls, the way some lanterns were tied to wishes, the tradition of offering glowing cloth for good luck. Aaron listened closely, his curiosity mixing with a growing admiration. The market stretched endlessly, each corner holding new wonders, but Aaron found himself less focused on the stalls and more on Mira's voice. She spoke softly, yet each word carried a warmth that made the alien market feel almost familiar. By the time they reached the center of the lantern market, the night had deepened. Thousands of lanterns floated overhead, their glow bright against the dark sky. Aaron stopped, tilting his head upward. This is more beautiful than I imagined, he said softly. Mira watched him quietly. For reasons she did not fully understand, she found herself smiling at his words, and so, in the middle of the busiest night of the year, among thousands of glowing lanterns, a human traveler and an alien merchant took the first step into something neither expected. The night in the lantern market grew deeper, yet the place only became brighter. More lanterns were lit, floating upward until the sky looked like an endless sea of stars. Music filled the air, sometimes soft like rain, sometimes fast like beating drums. The scent of roasted fruit, sweet bread, and spiced drinks mixed into a wave that made every breath feel alive. Aaron followed Mira through the crowd. He had not expected to make a friend so quickly, especially on a world where he thought he would be nothing more than a passing stranger. Mira moved with easy grace, stepping lightly between families and traders, her silver hair glowing faintly under the lanterns. She walked as if the busy market belonged to her, which in a way it did. Do you come here every year? Shrain asked, trying to match her pace. Yes, Mira replied, glancing back at him. My family's stall has been here since before I was born. For us, the lantern market is not just a place to trade. It is part of who we are. Aaron nodded. I can see why. This place feels alive. Mira's lips curved in a faint smile. Alive. Yes, that is a good word for it. They stopped at a stall where lanterns shaped like animals were being sold. Some looked like birds, others like fish, and a few like creatures Aaron had never seen. The lanterns floated just above the vendor's table, glowing softly as if they were alive themselves. A small child reached up and laughed when one of the lanterns dipped toward her hand. Aaron leaned closer, fascinated. These are beautiful. How do they float? Mira touched one gently, and it bobbed in the air like a balloon. They are filled with a light gas from the mountain caves, she explained. The glow comes from crystals ground into powder and mixed with oil. The craft is old. My people believe these lanterns carry dreams into the sky. Aaron smiled. Dreams in the sky. That sounds magical. Magic? Mira tilted her head. We do not call it magic, but perhaps to a human it feels that way. They moved on, passing stalls of spices, jewelry made from glowing stones, and cloth that shimmered as if woven with stars. Everywhere they went, Mira explained small details. What the food was, where the stones came from, how the music carried stories. Aaron listened with genuine interest, asking questions that made her smile. Many visitors came to the lantern market, but few listened with such attention. For Mira, it was strange. She had met travelers from far systems before. They often treated her people with politeness, sometimes with curiosity, but rarely with such warmth. Aaron's eyes carried no distance, no barrier. He looked at her in the market as though every part of it mattered. As they walked, a group of musicians began playing in the corner of the street. The sound was light and rhythmic, like footsteps across water. Couples and friends gathered, moving gently to the music. Children danced freely, their glowing skin making trails of light in the air. Aaron slowed, watching. It looks like fun.
Mira raised an eyebrow. Do humans dance? Aaron chuckled. Some do. I try, but I'm not sure you call it dancing. Her eyes sparkled faintly. Show me. He blinked. What? Here. Why not? Aaron scratched his neck nervously, but seeing Myra's patient smile, he sighed and stepped into the open. He moved awkwardly at first, his steps uncertain, trying to follow the rhythm. Some in the crowd noticed and chuckled softly, not in unkindness but in amusement. Mira laughed quietly, covering her mouth with her hand. See? I warned you, Aaron said, though his grin betrayed his embarrassment. Mira surprised him by stepping forward and taking his hand. Her touch was light, but steady. Then let me guide you. Together, they began to move. Myra's steps were graceful, flowing like water. She led him slowly, letting him adjust until his movements grew smoother. The music carried them, and soon Aaron found himself smiling, his earlier shyness melting away. The crowd faded, and for a moment it felt as though only the two of them remained, moving under the sea of lanterns. When the music ended, the crowd clapped, and children ran past them, laughing. Mira released his hand gently, her eyes soft with amusement. You are not as bad as you think, she said. Aaron chuckled, a little breathless. That's the kindest review I've ever gotten. They continued walking, but now the silence between them felt different. Not awkward, but filled with something unspoken. As they reached the quieter part of the market, Aaron noticed a stall filled with glowing fruits. He paused, curious. Earlier, you said some of these are safe for humans. Which ones? Mira picked up a small round fruit that glowed faintly yellow. She held it out to him. This one. It is called Luma. It is sweet, and it helps when the night grows hot. Aaron hesitated, then took it. You're sure it won't? I don't know. Make me float like those lanterns. Mira laughed softly. I promise. It will only make you smile. He bit into the fruit carefully. The juice burst in his mouth, cool and sweet, with a taste like honey mixed with lemon. His eyes widened. That's incredible. Myra's expression softened as she watched him. You remind me of a child seeing the market for the first time. Everything surprises you. Aaron wiped his hand and smiled. That's because everything here is worth being surprised about. For a moment, their eyes met, and the lantern light reflected between them. But the peace did not last long. A sudden commotion rose nearby. A group of traders pushed their way through the crowd, their voices loud and demanding. They were tall, with heavy builds and rough clothes, their eyes sharp with greed. They stopped at Myra's family stall, where her younger brother was arranging glowing cloth. Aaron frowned. What's happening? Myra's face grew tense. Those men, they come every year. They want goods without paying fair price. The traders shouted, their words carrying anger. One of them grabbed a piece of glowing cloth roughly, while her brother protested. The crowd shifted uneasily, watching but not interfering. Without thinking, Aaron stepped closer. Do they always do this? He asked Mira quietly. Yes, she replied, her voice low. They believe no one will stop them. Aaron looked at her, then back at the men. He was not strong compared to them, and he knew humans were not seen as warriors here. But something in him would not let him stand aside. He walked forward, placing himself between the traders and the stall. Hey, he said firmly, though his heart beat fast. That doesn't belong to you. If you want it, you should pay like everyone else. The men turned, surprised to see a human standing there. A ripple of laughter passed between them. And who are you? One asked mockingly. This is not your business, human. Aaron forced himself to stand tall. Maybe not, but I think everyone here can see what's happening. You don't want the market to think you're thieves, do you? His voice carried louder than he expected, enough that nearby people began to murmur. Heads turned. Some of the crowd stepped closer, watching. The traders glanced around, realizing eyes were now fixed on them. Their bravado weakened. Myra's brother stood silently behind Aaron, clutching the glowing cloth. Mira herself moved closer, her expression filled with both surprise and concern. After a long moment, the traders muttered something under their breath and dropped the cloth. They shoved past Aaron roughly, but did not dare do more, disappearing into the crowd. The market slowly returned to life. Myra's brother looked at Aaron with wide eyes. "Thank you," he whispered. Aaron nodded, trying to steady his breath. He turned to Mira, half expecting her to scold him for taking a risk. Instead, she stepped closer, her voice soft but steady. "You should not have done that," she said. Then, after a pause, she added, "But I'm glad you did." Aaron smiled faintly, the tension easing from his shoulders. "I couldn't just stand there." Mira looked at him for a long moment, the lantern light reflecting in her eyes. Then she spoke quietly, almost to herself. "You are different from the others I have met." Aaron tilted his head. "Different in a good way?" Her lips curved into a small smile. "Yes, in a good way." The music began again in the distance, and the glow of lanterns filled the sky. Aaron and Mira stood side by side, the noise of the market around them, yet their focus remained on each other. It was still early in their meeting, yet already something had begun to change, something both of them felt, though neither dared to name it. The night of the lantern market grew busier as the hours passed. The streets seemed alive, glowing with thousands of lanterns drifting above the heads of countless visitors. Music played from every corner, mixing with laughter, the calls of merchants, and the steady hum of voices. The warm air carried a blend of spice, fruit, and smoke that made the place feel both festive and overwhelming. Aaron walked beside Mira as they moved back through the crowds. He still felt the rush of what had happened earlier. Standing up to those traitors had not been easy, but he couldn't have turned away. He knew he had looked small compared to them, but when he saw Myra's quiet smile afterward, he knew he had done the right thing. Mira glanced at him now, her silver hair reflecting the lantern glow. "You are brave," she said softly, "but you must be careful. The market is full of people. Not all of them are kind. Some may think you are too quick to interfere." Aaron shrugged lightly. "Maybe, but I couldn't just let them push you and your family around. That's not right." Her eyes softened. "Still, thank you." They walked a little farther until they reached a quieter street of the market. Here, the stalls were smaller, selling handmade crafts, painted lanterns, and tiny charms. The crowds were lighter and the air cooler. Aaron felt more at ease here, though he could still hear the noise of the main square behind them. Mira slowed her pace and stopped at a stall run by an elderly woman with skin like glass, glowing faintly from within. The woman smiled warmly at Mira, who greeted her in her own language. She bought a small charm shaped like a flower and placed it gently into Aaron's hand. "What's this?" he asked, surprised. "A gift," Mira replied. "It is a charm of safety. Travelers carry it during the festival." Aaron looked at the tiny glowing flower. It was delicate, warm in his palm, and strangely calming. He smiled. "Thank you. I'll keep it safe." They continued their walk, sharing small stories about their lives. Aaron told Mira about his travels on ships, working odd jobs to pay his way across the stars. Mira told him about growing up in the market, how she had learned the craft of weaving glowing cloth, and how every year she waited for the festival lantern to rise. As they spoke, the air grew heavier with noise again. They had wandered back toward the main square without realizing. Here, the crowds pressed close together, and the glow of lanterns was so strong it was almost like daylight. Music thundered louder, and laughter mixed with shouts. But within the brightness and noise, a sharp tension suddenly stirred. Aaron noticed at first in the way the crowd shifted uneasily. People moved aside, glancing nervously toward one end of the square. A group of figures pushed through, their voices loud and rough. Aaron recognized them instantly, the same traitors from before. Myra's expression tightened. Not them again. The men strode into the square, no longer trying to hide their arrogance. They shouted at a vendor selling glowing fruits, demanding more for less. When the vendor refused, they laughed and shoved the stall roughly, knocking some of the fruits to the ground. The crowd murmured, but no one stepped forward. Aaron clenched his fists. "They're just going to keep doing this?" "Yes," Mira said quietly. "Every year they cause trouble. Most people look away. The guards rarely come until it is too late." The traders moved closer to Myra's stall again, where her brother was still tending the cloth. One of them grabbed at a folded piece and waved it in the air. This will sell well. We'll take it. Give us more. Myra's brother protested, his voice shaking. You must pay. The man laughed. Pay? We do not pay for scraps. Before Mira could move, Aaron stepped forward again. His heart pounded, but he spoke loudly enough for the crowd to hear. Leave them alone. If you want cloth, pay for it like everyone else. The traders turned, recognizing him. One sneered. The little human again. Do you think we fear you? Aaron forced himself to stand tall. Maybe not, but everyone here is watching. Do you really want them to remember you as thieves? The crowd had grown larger, drawn by the shouting. Many eyes were now fixed on the men. Some whispered, some frowned. The traders shifted uneasily, but their pride kept them from backing down quickly this time. One of them stepped closer, towering over Aaron. Careful, human. Words can burn. Aaron's palms were sweaty, but he met the man's eyes steadily. Better words and silence. For a tense moment, it seemed the situation might explode. Then, before anything could happen, Mira stepped forward. Her voice was calm but carried a strength that silenced the crowd. You disgrace the market, she said firmly. This place is built on respect and fairness. If you cannot follow that, then you are not welcome here. The traders hesitated. They glanced around, realizing that the crowd was no longer just watching silently. People were frowning, whispering, some even stepping closer in quiet support. The pressure of so many eyes forced them to back away. One muttered angrily, throwing the cloth down, "This is not over." With that, they shoved through the crowd and disappeared into the alleys. The square slowly relaxed. Myra's brother rushed forward, relief on his face. "Thank you," he whispered again, this time to both Mira and Aaron. Aaron let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. His body trembled slightly from the tension, but he tried to smile. "Guess I can't seem to keep quiet when I should." Mira looked at him, her expression unreadable at first. Then her lips curved into a small, warm smile. "No, you cannot, and I think that is why you are different." They walked together to a quieter corner of the square. The music had started again, and lanterns floated higher, their glow reflecting in Myra's blue eyes. She looked at Aaron with a gentleness he had not seen before. "You risked yourself again," she said softly. Aaron shrugged, though his voice was steady. "I didn't do it just for your stall. I did it because it was wrong. Someone has to stand up to people like them." Mira tilted her head. "You speak as if it is simple. But most do not act, even when they know what is right. That is what makes you different, Aaron." He met her gaze. "And you? You spoke too." Your voice turned the crowd. That took courage. For a moment, silence stretched between them, filled only by the sound of distant music and the glow of lanterns drifting above. Something unspoken passed between them. Respect, understanding, and perhaps something even deeper beginning to grow. As the night continued, they wandered again, though now their steps were slower, their words softer. The trouble with the traders had shaken the market, but for Aaron and Mira, it had also drawn them closer. The festival was far from over, and the great lantern had yet to rise. But already, under the lantern lights, their bond had begun to take shape, born not only a curiosity, but a shared courage. The lantern market was at its brightest now. Thousands of glowing orbs floated high above the city, their colors painting the night sky with gold, red, and blue. Music from flutes and drums rose in waves, mixing with the laughter of families and the voices of traders calling out their wares. The air smelled of roasted fruit, honey bread, and warm spiced drinks. Aaron walked beside Mira, his heart still beating with the memory of what had happened earlier. Standing against those traders had left him both nervous and proud. But what stayed in his thoughts most was the way Mira had looked at him afterward. There had been something in her eyes, something soft, something that told him she saw him not as just a human visitor, but as someone she could trust. They moved into a quieter street, where the crowd was thinner. Lanterns hung closer here, tied to strings above narrow stalls selling charms, woven bracelets, and carved wooden animals. The glow was gentle, softer than the main square, and the air was cooler. Mira stopped at a stall where small lanterns were painted with scenes of rivers, mountains, and skies. She picked one up carefully, turning it in her hands. "These are made by hand," she explained. "Each picture tells a story. Families hang them outside their homes, so the lantern light carries their story into the world." Aaron leaned closer, admiring the tiny brushstrokes. "That's beautiful. On Earth, we use paintings or books for stories. But here, even light tells a story." Mira looked at him, her lips curving into a small smile. "You see things deeply, Aaron. Most visitors only notice the glow, not the meaning." He shrugged lightly, though her words warmed him. Maybe that's because the meaning is what matters most. They continued walking, their pace unhurried. Mira guided him toward the center of the market, where the largest lantern of the festival would soon rise. She explained that it was a tradition. When the great lantern floated upward, carrying thousands of smaller lanterns with it, people made wishes for the year to come. Aaron listened with quiet wonder. He had never seen a festival like this before. On the ships where he had worked, celebrations were simple. Shared meals, a few songs, maybe a story told by someone older. But here, the entire city seemed to come alive for one night. As they reached the wide plaza at the heart of the market, Aaron stopped, his eyes widening. The plaza was filled with people, families, couples, traders, and children, all gathered together. At the center stood a massive lantern, taller than a house, glowing softly from within. Its frame was shaped like a sphere, woven with shining threads of cloth, and its light pulsed gently, as if breathing. Myra's voice grew quieter as she looked at it. "When I was little, I thought the great lantern was alive. I believed it listened to every wish." Aaron smiled. "Maybe it does." They found a place near the edge of the plaza, close enough to see clearly but far enough to breathe in the space. Around them, the crowd hummed with anticipation. Small lanterns were being lit by families. Their colors joined the glow of the larger one. The music softened, replaced by a slow rhythm of drums that echoed like a heartbeat. Mira turned to him. "You should make a wish too, Aaron. Even if you do not believe in it, it is part of the moment." He looked at the glowing giant, and then back at her. "And what about you? Do you still make wishes?" Her eyes reflected the lantern light, shimmering softly. "Yes, even if they do not always come true. Wishing reminds me of hope. Without hope, the lantern would only be light. With hope, it becomes a dream." Her words lingered in Aaron's mind. He thought of the journeys he had taken, the empty stars he had crossed, the endless work and the lonely nights. For the first time in a long while, he realized he felt more than a traveler drifting from one world to another. Standing beside Mira, he felt connected, as if this night meant something more than just another stop in his wandering. The drums grew louder. Slowly, the great lantern began to rise. The crowd gasped as its glow strengthened, golden and warm. Smaller lanterns floated upward with it, joining in its path, until the sky became a river of light. Aaron and Mira stood close, their shoulders nearly touching. The glow bathed their faces, softening every line, every shadow. Aaron looked upward, on his eyes. Mira, however, was not watching the lantern anymore. She was watching him. "Aaron," she said softly. He turned to her, surprised by the sound of her voice. It was quiet, yet steady. "I did not expect to meet someone like you tonight," she continued. "You are not like other travelers. You listen. You care. You stand when others stay silent." Aaron's throat tightened slightly, but he managed to smile. "I didn't expect this either. I thought I was just coming to see lanterns. But then I met you." Mira lowered her gaze for a moment, then looked back at him. "When I was younger, my mother told me a story. She said that if two people meet under the rising lantern, and if their hearts speak the same wish, their paths will be tied together." Aaron's heart beat faster. "And what would you wish for?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Mira hesitated, her silver hair falling gently over her shoulder. "I would wish not to walk alone. To find someone who understands the light and the shadows." Aaron's chest felt warm, as though the lantern's glow had entered him. He wanted to speak, but words caught in his throat. He looked at the sky again, searching for courage. Then he turned back to her. "My wish would be the same," he said quietly. "To not be alone anymore. To find someone who makes even the farthest place feel like home." For a moment, the world around them seemed to fade. The drums, the crowd, the glowing lanterns, all of it became background to the quiet space between them. Myra's eyes softened, and she stepped a little closer. The glow of the lantern reflected in her skin, making her seem like she was lit from within. "Then maybe," she whispered, "the lantern has already heard." Aaron felt his breath catch, but he did not look away. He had crossed stars, walked among strangers, and seen wonders of many kinds. But nothing compared to the simple moment, standing in a market under rising lanterns, beside someone who made him feel seen. The great lantern floated higher, carrying with it thousands of smaller lights, until the sky looked like a golden ocean above the city. The crowd cheered, voices rising in celebration. Children laughed, families embraced, music swelled again. But Aaron and Mira stood still, caught in a quietness that belonged only to them. Mira finally smiled, soft and true. Perhaps the lantern knows what it is doing after all. Aaron returned her smile, his voice low but steady. "I think it does." They did not need to say more. The night itself carried the rest. The festival continued around them, full of color and sound, but for Aaron and Mira, the most important part had already happened. Under the lantern lights, their wishes had met, and something new had begun. Something fragile yet strong, something that could grow beyond one night. And as the lanterns floated higher into the endless sky, so too did the quiet hope in their hearts. The festival lights slowly faded into the night sky as the great lantern drifted farther and farther upward, becoming a tiny glow among the stars. The music of drums and flutes softened, and the crowd in the plaza began to scatter into smaller groups. Families carried their children, traders closed their stalls, and laughter echoed down the streets. Aaron and Mira remained where they stood, letting the world move around them. For a long moment, they did not speak. It felt as if words might break the delicate thread that had formed between them. Instead, they simply breathed the same night air and watched the lanterns vanish into the heavens. Finally, Mira turned her face toward him. "The lanterns will return next year," she said softly, "but this night will not come again." Aaron understood. Festivals were made of moments, bright, fragile, and impossible to repeat in exactly the same way. "That's why it matters," he answered, "because it only happens once." She smiled faintly. "And yet, I would not want to end." They walked together through the quieter streets of the market. The stalls were closing now, the glowing lights dimmed to gentle embers. A few children chased the last floating lanterns, laughing as they reached for them. The air was cooler, carrying the scent of smoke from fading torches and the sweet remains of roasted fruit. As they reached the edge of the market, Mira slowed her steps. "Aaron," she began, her voice calm but thoughtful, "what happens now? Tomorrow, will you leave for another world? Or will you stay in this city for a time?" The question pressed on Aaron's heart. He had lived most of his life, moving from one star system to another. His work as a trader and helper on ships meant he never stayed in one place for long. He had no true home, only brief stops, brief faces, brief stories. But tonight felt different. Myra's presence made the idea of leaving heavy in a way he had never felt before. "I don't know," he admitted honestly. "I came here to see the lanterns and to rest for a while. I didn't expect," he paused, searching for the right words. "I didn't expect to feel like I belonged." Mira looked at him quietly, her silver hair catching the glow of a fading lantern. "Perhaps belonging is not found. Perhaps it is made." Her words stayed with him as they reached a small stone bridge over a narrow river. The water reflected the lantern light, like scattered stars. They leaned on the railing, the night calm around them. Aaron turned to her. "Do you ever dream of leaving this place? Of seeing other worlds?" Mira rested her chin lightly on her hand. "When I was younger, yes. I thought other stars would hold more wonders than my own city. But as I grew, I realized every place has its own wonders, some too small to notice until you stay long enough. That is why I chose to remain. The lantern market, the people, the stories, they are my roots. Aaron nodded slowly. He had no roots, and perhaps that was why her words touched him so deeply. She had found her place in the world, while he had spent years drifting. "Would you ever travel?" he asked softly. She lifted her eyes to his, steady and clear. "I would, but only if I traveled with someone I trusted. Someone who would not see me as a burden, but as a companion." The meaning in her words was clear. His breath caught, and his heart quickened. "Mira," she looked away for a moment, her hands clasped together on the railing. "Aaron, I cannot promise what the future will bring, but I know this. When I stood beside you tonight, when our wishes met under the lantern, I felt something true. I do not want it to end with only this night." Her voice trembled slightly, not with fear, but with hope. Aaron's chest filled with warmth. He reached out, not with boldness, but with gentle courage, and placed his hand lightly over hers. She did not pull away. Instead, her fingers relaxed under his touch. "I feel the same," he said quietly. "I've walked through countless cities, across endless stars, and never felt what I felt tonight. If you wish it, I will stay. Or, if you wish it, I will take you with me when I go. Whatever path we choose, I want to walk it with you." The river below whispered softly, carrying the reflection of the last lanterns into the distance. Mira turned back to him, her eyes shining. Then perhaps the lantern did hear us after all. They stood together in silence, their hands joined as the night deepened. The next morning, the city woke slowly from the festival. The stalls reopened with quieter energy, and children played with scraps of paper lanterns left behind. The air was lighter, filled with the sense of new beginnings. Aaron and Mira met again in the marketplace, though now it looked different, less crowded, less bright. Without the festival, it was simply a place of daily life. Yet, for Aaron, it felt just as meaningful. Mira handed him a small object wrapped in cloth. "For you," she said. He opened it and found a hand-painted lantern, small enough to fit in his palm. The design showed a river under a starry sky, with two paths drawn side by side, winding toward the horizon. "It is a traveler's lantern," she explained. "It reminds the one who carries it that light can guide them home, no matter how far they go." Aaron held it carefully, his voice soft. "This is more than a gift. It's a promise, isn't it?" Mira nodded gently. "Yes." He smiled, the weight of loneliness lifting from him in a way he had not thought possible. For once, the road ahead did not look endless or empty. It looked shared. That evening, they sat together on the same stone bridge where they had spoken the night before. The Lantern Festival was over, but the river still carried quiet light, and the city hummed with life. Aaron looked out at the horizon. "So, Mira, what should our first step be? Stay here for a while, or begin a journey?" Mira tilted her head, thoughtful. "Perhaps both. Stay long enough to know what is ours here, then journey far enough to know what we can share with the stars." Her answer made him laugh softly, not because it was amusing, but because it was wise. "Then it's decided." The sky above was darker now, but one star shone brighter than the rest. Aaron lifted the small lantern she had given him, letting its glow join the starlight. Mira leaned closer, her shoulder brushing his lightly. Together, they sat in the gentle night. Two paths joined not by chance but by choice. The lantern market would return each year, glowing with stories and dreams. But for Aaron and Mira, its light had already done its greatest work. It had kindled a bond strong enough to guide them beyond one night, beyond one city, beyond one world. And in that bond, they found not just love, but a home in each other.